Our presentation is about article when the test developer does not speak the target language, the use of language information in the test development process. This is our outline. This presentation will be finished by Yang Lan and Lu Yao Tang. Okay, the first part is introduction, including background, research question and purpose, and significance. Firstly, I will talk about something about background. Firstly, language testers are not always fluent in the target language. There is a paucity of research about tests written by NNS with more limited proficiency in the target language, which is sometimes the case in classroom foreign language teaching contexts, and there is even scandal scholarship on language tests, divided by professionals with no proficiency in the language being tested. Secondly, the ideal test writer profile is thus spread across more than one person, and together they need to fulfill the job of the test writer. In other words, although there is sufficiency in-house assessment expertise, what needs to be constructed out is knowledge of the language to be assessed. Thirdly, given scandal scholarly attention, it remains unclear what the exact nature is of such collaboration, or what considerations play a role in the process. Secondly, this is a part of research question and purpose. Research question is what issues arise during the test development process when the assessment experts have no proficiency in the target language, and the consulting target language speakers are not assessment literate. Research purpose is examining this collaborative approach to test development to gain insights into how professional standards of practice are met in such contexts. Finally, as for significance of the research is that it can provide test development professionals and researchers with an insightful discussion about this method of test development. Let's move to the next part is methodology. The case study participants comprised a convenience sample of 7 people who were involved in the development of the previously described LCTA reading items. 4 were regular employees of the company working as assessment experts. They had 2 to 5 years of experience working on LCTA tests, as well as on tests in more widely spoken languages. All were native or highly proficient speakers of American English. However, they did not speak the target language of most of the tests they work on at the company. In the remainder of this article, these participants are referred to as the test developer experts. They were foreign-born residents of the U.S., and their native language were other languages. They were also proficient in English and had lived in the U.S. for periods ranging from 3 to 11 years. The procedures are following. The first step is 2 interview guides were prepared in advance, one for the test development experts and one for the language informants. The second step is that interviews were first conducted with the test development experts to get a detailed account of the item development process, as well as information regarding the tasks expert of language informants versus test development experts. The third step is interviewing with the language informants. Instruments are interview and software. The type of date is the qualitative date. The process of analysis is following. The interviews was transcribed professionally and checked by one of the researchers. to gain an overall impression of the date and form some initial insights. Time was spent going through the transcripts. Next, a more detailed analysis was conducted by using the software. A coding frame was generated, consisting of a combination of deductive codes established on the base of the literature and the interview guide, and inductive codes emerging from the data themselves. Any coding differences were discussed, which led to a somewhat revised and refined coding scheme. Having reached a high level of coding consistency, one researcher continued to code the entire data set. Finally, additional checks of the date and data interpretation were sought before writing the summary of results to establish the extent to which the present case study may generalize to other situations.
Thirdly, results of analysis. There are three main things: test developers, test development, and the proficiency skill. However, the proficiency skill was left out because of the low occurrence. About test developers. First, the test development experts thought that the ideal qualifications of language informants were relying on their tasks and that the job requirements are adjusted in function of the test's target language. Next, one test development expert explained that the level of English of language informants is crucial for communication with the test development experts. Then experts said that language informants needed to know the changes of the target language and social-cultural events. Then next, experts thought that the learning and teaching experience are useful for professions. Next, professional and personal experience with foreigners are beneficial for communicating with language informants. Experts state that the training was simplified as much as possible given the low assessment literacy of most language informants, and the three language informants in this study reported no issues with the training, and they felt that the training is useful for upcoming assessments. And then the test development experts prepared in a different manner for a new project. They revealed that they usually begin by researching the language and the culture of their assignment. Indeed, the language informants seemed to value test development experts who demonstrated knowledge and interest in the target language and culture. Test development. The test development experts and language informants also discussed several aspects of test development. Their comments focused on the two major phases of test development: the collection and adaptation of reading input materials and item writing phase. The largest number of comments, 113, was made on locating materials. The general process involved language informants being given a list of requirements for passages and adequate tests. Test development experts then use the STEAM checklist to determine the acceptability of the submitted passage by looking at an English rendering of the target language test. Then Several considerations on passages were raised during the interviews for social factors influencing the language and availability of input materials. Seeing the test as authentic and plausible as possible. Finally, all participants discussed issues related to rendering. The code occurred 53 times and co-occurred with both locating passages and item writing, meaning that renderings affect both aspects of test development. The next one, conclusion. Interpretation of results from two aspects: test developers and test development process. Test developers, two ideal applicant profiles. First, test development experts having theoretical and practical language assessment expertise and foreign language teaching experience. Next, language informants who are proficient in and having teaching experience of the target language. A number of additional traits were put forward by the interviews, which are not mentioned or emphasized as much in more conventional approaches, such as cross-linguistic and cross-cultural competence. And then language informants, international and language learning teaching experience were considered key to the celebration. Test development process. First, basic training in proficiency assessment. Writing the comprehension questions. Next, teamwork. Checks and balances show the process necessitates back and forth between assessment experts and language informants, which serves as quality assurance at this level of development. Next, limitations and suggestions. Limitations. This research was trimmed to the parameters at risk, emphasizing the idiosyncrasy of its findings. Some suggestions for future in-depth research. First, the impact of the language informants, English proficiency, and the influence of the quality of renderings. Next, the role of language informants' judgment on issues related to authenticity and language variety switches. Next one, critique. Strength. The groundwork for LCTLS research. Then the results of the research is clear. Weakness. This study is limited to parameters that may exacerbate the traits it finds. Next, participants have different opinions in different testing contexts. This is the discussed question: how to achieve the balance between test development experts and language informants. This is our presentation. Thanks for your listening.